Carl here from Brrraaains A Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial for sure, and it's 31 Days of Halloween, taking us nostalgia goggles off and reliving childhood horror, which are the two statements that super apply to this film, an anthology horror movie that I had not seen for a very long time. Most of the films in this list I've watched quite close to when the videos have been recorded. There's one or two that I haven't needed to rewatch, but most have been done within days or within a week of the actual film, of the video being recorded. But in this case, it's the closest I could possibly get to it. As of the time of this video being recorded, it's been a few hours since I rewatched this, and I needed to really rewatch this because my recollection of it were basically snippets here and there. Snippets that massively stood out, but snippets, and that was about it. What those snippets fit into as a story, I couldn't quite remember, and I was quite excited to sort of relive that because these particular snippets from this anthology horror Tales from the Darkside, the movie, really stood out in my head. And a lot of the time when I would reflect on them, when I would look back and do that nostalgic look back to them, it always felt harrowing and dark and difficult to sort of think about. So I was really intrigued to rewatch it and see if that held up, because it had been a very long time. So long, in fact, that I'd forgotten that it's only 3 stories, not including the wraparound. Technically 4, I suppose, but the fourth is a wraparound story. But 3 stories, 3 substantial stories, and each is varied and with differing qualities. But I've also forgotten the caliber of the cast in this film. Like, you've got Steve Buscemi, Christian Slater, Julianne Moore. Who else we got? Lots of faces as well. Maybe I don't remember the names, but I know from other films. So like the third story, the one involving the gargoyle, the main characters in that, I remember her from playing up alongside Arnold Schwarzenegger in Commando. Commando getting its second reference this month, and James Remar, of course, is the main guy of that. There we go. And the names do come back to me eventually, of course. The Cats one, the old man, and that is really familiar, but again, like, what is the actual name? They're all so familiar, but sometimes it's like an odd place as well. So, like, going off on tangents here, because that's the purpose of these videos. The second story, the Cat one, the main character in that, the Hitman, was in a really film I watched a lot when I was younger, and I really liked, called Let It Ride, that starred Richard Dreyfuss as a lucky gambler, a comedy, sort of a lucky gambler who ends up basically getting touched, so to speak, so he gets really lucky, and the people he meets at the racetrack and stuff like that. And so the main guy in the Cat one is a sort of comedic side character in Let It Ride. So I always remember to see him play this role, and what happens to him in this, I always found really disturbing, because they were the only 2 films I ever saw this character in. Him in Let It Ride, and him in Tales from the Darkside, the movie. 2 wildly different roles, so super disturbing. So that's like one of the things. That was one of the stories that always stuck out in my head. In particular, the image and the visual of the cat basically climbing into his stomach and killing him, and then climbing out at the end. Super disturbing. But you know what doesn't hold up about that? How freaking dark that particular story is. In fact, all of these stories are filmed in such darkness, it can be downright difficult at times to actually see what is going on. It does great to hide sort of shoddy effects and all that, but it's not a fun, watchable experience at all. And it really applies, I think, worse to this one and the third story overall. So each, I think, tonally is well off base. I think as an anthology, it doesn't really work because each story feels totally randomly thrown together, and the wraparound tone-wise doesn't fit anything else in the actual film. So the wraparound is basically a Hansel and Gretel style story done sort of with a joke. Debbie Harry plays the sort of lead witch character of this, and it's done where a boy she's got captive and is planning to cook, is distracting with stories from a book, and these are the 3 stories he tells her. It's silly. It ends in slapstick fashion, and it does not fit the tone of anything else. Because the first story is basically a reanimated mummy one that kills its masters, which is Steve Buscemi's character, kills who he wants him to kill because he's been humiliated and screwed out of a prize or something like that. It is well dull. But from that, the memory I had was the flowers stuffed inside the character of Julianne Moore, you know, like being killed and having the flower stuffed inside her. That always stuck out. The rest of it, though, nothing about this one at all. I've already explained the cat one, what really stood out for that, and I think it does hold up. Particularly when you kind of get the backstory of why this cat might be wanting to kill his old man and his family and all of that. I really like that. It is the third story that really is the one that always disturbed me the most. Now, that does stick, I think, to some degree. However, there's just a little dumb aspect about it that made me laugh so hard now as an adult that I can't quite remember what I would have thought as a kid, but I doubt I would have been impressed. So, of course, this is a story about a man who runs into a giant humanoid gargoyle in an alleyway. It kills his friend at the bar. This guy's a struggling arse, we should say as well. He's got a whole, oh, I'm struggling kind of thing. This creature kills his friend, and James Remar begs for his life, and the creature, in this really soft and toned voice that you don't expect to come out of it, sort of out of how it looks. This soft toned, like, voice sort of says, okay, I won't kill you, but you've got to promise to never, ever tell anyone what you saw. Like, never tell anyone what happened here, never tell anyone about what you experienced and what you saw. And shortly after that, he meets this woman. He kind of helps her out, and they end up sleeping together, falling in love and all of that. And he ends up spending 10 years of his life with her. She helps him become successful by, you know, getting him connections in the gallery and all of this stuff. And it's all very, very sweet until on the 10th anniversary, he decides, look, I'm going to break my promise to that creature, and I'm going to tell the love of my life, my wife, about this monster. Yeah, I'm surprised it took him this long, you know, considering what it is. I know, considering the situation, I feel like eventually he would have told her. But he chooses now to tell her, and instead of being like, oh, what madness, or what silliness, or oh my god, that's terrible, she kind of breaks down and cries, and then admonishes him for breaking his promise. And then we get this really violent and gory scene where her body breaks apart as the gargoyle creature breaks out of it. Basically, it is the ultimate catfish, what happens here. He can only watch as it's revealed that the gargoyle had taken the form of her as a reward, I guess, to keep an eye on him. And now that he's broken his promise, it's all over and done with. They have 2 kids. What happens to those 2 kids? And this is the silly part. He turns around to find out they've turned into little smaller gargoyles, and the music's all dramatic, like it's supposed to be quite impactful. I thought it was so silly. I just ended up laughing. And he ends up getting his throat ripped out, basically. You broke a promise, the creature says, so this is all over, and that's how it ends. It ends with the gargoyle taking a position on a building with the 2 kids wrapped them. It's almost sad to a degree, like kind of like a sad romance. And it was always this story that stuck out the most, in particular the sort of concept around the idea that this gargoyle had taken the form of this woman and catfished this dude. Now, obviously, I didn't really understand that aspect, and I'm kind of taking the piss when I say that as well. But I always remember the violency, the effects of her body breaking apart as it emerges from it, and that shit holds up. Even though it's dark as hell, I loved it. It really, really holds up. It is, of the stories, the 3, the one I think is the most creative. And I certainly appreciated when I was younger, and I appreciate even more now. The other 2, not so much. Certainly not the mummy one. I really didn't like that at all, but I never really rated it as a child either. And the cat one left more disturbing elements in my head. I've always liked cats as a child. And as an adult, I've had several, and loved several, and I have 2 now that I adore. So, you know, to see a cat in this context, and to see a cat getting revenge for mistreatment, I'm kind of on the cat's side. But overall, this is an experience that I'm really glad I got to relive. I'm really glad I did, because I don't think I would have watched this movie without a good reason like this to do it. And as far as anthology horrors go, there are so many better ones. In fact, I am going to end up talking about another before this series is done for the month. But for now, this is Tales from the Darkside, the movie. What do you reckon? You got any thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to see more content like this, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It is gratefully appreciated. You can find us over at gbhbl.com, our full website, where reviews, news, and so much more goes up daily. We're also on all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, at gbhbl. Just search for gbhbl and you will find us out there. We also have merchandise on sale. You can access the shop via the website.